Hello, everybody, and welcome to Speak Out, the OutWrite podcast. I'm your host, JQ. You can use any pronouns for me.
I'm Emma. I use they, she, he pronouns.
I'm Ava. I use they, she pronouns.
I'm Emily, and I use she, her pronouns.
And today, in honor of our secondary Halloween, we are talking about the queer costume. All things related to costuming, hiding your true self behind a mask, and
expressing
spooky.
yourself through a mask.
Yeah.
And spooky.
And spooky.
Also that part.
I want you to do your bit about butches in America in the 50s.
Oh.
Because I had so much fun reading it.
No, it was such a fun article. Like, I literally did it for a research project, like, for one of my communications classes. And then I was like, oh my god, this is gonna catapult me into my butch era. But, like, okay, I'll just, like, go then. So it was, like, it's, like, an article or, like, essay about, like, butches in America in the 50s. And it was, like, super interesting because it focused on what they called queer legibility, which is, like, being recognized, as queer by other queer people, but not by straight people. So, like, the dichotomy of, like, simultaneously concealing and revealing your identity to different groups.
Plausible deniability.
Yeah, exactly, that part. You put that in your notes.
I did!
So, like, obviously, like, the style was different back then. It was, like, super, like, still is, but, like, even more so. Like, clothing was gender-coded. Like, slacks were only recently acceptable as workwear, and, like, women were still there was still very much, like, femininity coded into everything that, like, women were expected to wear. Like, you know, that's where the whole, like, buttons have to be on this side, your sleeves have to be like this, your shirt has to be tailored in a certain way. Even if you're, like, wearing, like, an Oxford shirt or, like, slacks. So what butches ended up doing was wearing women's fashion still, but wearing it differently, as opposed to, like, fully wearing men's fashions, which obviously some butches did do, but obviously that would also make them, like, the target of, like, homophobic violence and stuff. So, like, there was kind of, like, a compromise or, like, a way of, like, coding women's fashion so that it fitted their, like, expression and that it transmitted queerness to other queer people. So they would wear, like, I don't know, it was, like, different in different communities. Like, there was one anecdote in here about, like, how at this one high school, the butches would wear, like, longer skirts and the femmes would wear, like, shorter skirts and knee-high socks, and that was, like, how they identified each other to, like, such a strong extent that, like, they talked, like, in the essay they talked about how this one girl was, like, having trouble with, like, being recognized as queer by the other queer people in her school. And then one day she comes to school in, like, this coded dress, like, long skirt and I think, like, Oxford shirt. And all the lesbians were like, oh my god, no way, I had no idea you were gay. And then she was just, like, in, and she didn't have to do anything else. And that's, like, connected to the fact that, like, also in that time, like, in addition to butchness being, like, kind of differently expressed, because, like, in order to avoid, like, violence, it was also, like, often required as, like, an entry into queer spaces, because, like, when you entered a queer space, it was still criminal. So you, like, by allowing you access, they were, like, trusting you with all the lives of the people in there. So, like, butchness ended up being a way that they knew that you could be trusted, or, like, already knowing somebody who would go to that queer space, like the club, usually. So then, like, within queer spaces, it would kind of be a flip-flop, like, rather than having to be, like, how, it, like, in regular, like, outside world, you'd have to, like, code dressing butch into feminine clothing. Femmes would code femininity into butch clothing. So, like, they would dress in a way that would look butch to outsiders to gain access, but then it would be in a way that would be, like, undeniably read as femme to the queers inside the queer space. And, yeah. I just thought that was so very cool, because it was just, like, the way that you're, like, simultaneously, like, transmitting your identity to some people, but then not everybody picks up on those signals. That part.
Yeah. No, I feel like one of the things that I find really interesting in that is that it assumes that everyone in the community has this, like, set of pre-existing knowledge, almost.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I'm glad that the queer community doesn't have to all be, like, familiar to one another as a matter of, like, safety, and because, like, constant persecution, that kind of thing.
Right.
But I also feel like it is really interesting to think about a community in which queerness is so tightly understood, if that makes sense. Because, like, I wouldn't know the first thing about how to go about, like, coding femininity into dressing butch or vice versa. I mean, I dress how I dress now, but that's not really, like... I'm doing it a lot more for me than to indicate that I'm a member of a community, although I suspect it probably...
ends up looking that way. Can't escape it.
No, it's okay. I'm not that invested in escaping it.
Yeah, as you should.
But yeah, and I feel like it would almost be easier today, though, with the internet, with, like, queer communities on the internet. But then again, like, does that mean that if it's on the internet, then, like, you know, it starts to bleed into the mainstream, and then those signals can be read by outsiders, and, like, that's useful for people who might be trying to join the community, but, you know, that can be, in some cases, dangerous, because it's not always safe everywhere. I don't know, like, what do you think of
No,
that?
very much so. It very much like, okay, well, it was my article in the Culture print from, last winter? Last spring? When was that? Well, anyways, which was about, like, it was called, like, Creation and Recreation, and, like, this is, like, the very cute little graphic that was there. I love it. I think it's great. But, like, that was something that I ended up, like, writing about was queer culture, like, on the internet. I think that was something that I ended up bringing up. I don't remember what else I talked about.
No,
There was
I
something
mean...
else about queer on the internet.
Okay, well, you think, I also want to say, I think a lot of... And I'm coming at this from a point of, like, transformative fandom culture, a term which I can define in greater detail if anyone needs.
That would be great. Sure.
Okay. Oh no, this is going to turn into another tangent.
Oh
no! Okay, so I like to think of fandom as this kind of dichotomy between, like, transformative and curative fandom. And so I feel like, maybe not in a space of entirely queer people, but, like, when you say, oh, I'm a fan of something, a lot of times that reads as, like, the stereotypical, oh, I memorized lots of trivia about this thing, like, maybe I collect merch of this show, and that's totally a fine way to do fandom, but let it be known that when I talk about my participation in fandom, I'm definitely, like, a transformative fandom person, which takes, like, I feel like there's much more of an aspect of media criticism to it, and along with that, much more of, like, and why did canon go this way and not another way? And also, while we're at it, let's explore what it would have been like if canon did go, like, this other way. And I feel like within that subculture, first of all, because there's, like, an aspect almost of transforming canon, hence the name, it's very prone to, like, crazy infighting. And second, as a part of that, I think that we're seeing, like, a big trend in these, again, majority queer spaces towards, like, very closed communities, which on the internet, so, like, accessing this online community also requires, like, knowing someone who's already in or signaling your opinions sufficiently, like, in another more public space so that someone else will invite you in. And, like, the classic example is, of course, the Discord server, but it's also, like, I have, like, a friend of a friend whose main fandoming happens on Slack, which I think is unhinged, but I respect the hustle. Like, I really do.
That's funny.
But I definitely feel like that's kind of a response to, like, what you were talking about, where everything's so public that it's, like, viewable to outsiders, to, like, people who might not get it, TM. And maybe you don't want strangers to be, like, trying to read, like, your queerness and your weird expressions of it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's different in a way, like, on TikTok, because TikTok has that algorithm that just, like, pushes it to the people who want to see it.
TikTok.
No, there's a lot of flaws to it, but I feel like a lot of queer content doesn't reach, like, outsiders as much. I mean, a lot of it does. But I feel like there are certain bits of it that only get pushed to queer people because it's just what's on their For You page, and then it just, like, the algorithm just feeds into that and keeps sending them more queer-coded things, which I think is good in some ways and bad in others, because then the outside community doesn't get exposed to the things that would help them normalize the queer community.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel like the website formerly known as Twitter is definitely the worst about it, because I feel like it's so easy for that context collapse to happen, where your right silly little post gets randomly retweeted by the wrong person, and now it's stuck in front of a bunch of right wing people who hate queerness in all forms, and you just get dogpiled into oblivion. Mm-hmm. So I definitely understand the urge to move queer community into these closed spaces, especially online, because it is it's not quite the Wild West, but it is there are highly organized hate campaigns out there, and if you're unlucky, they will find you.
Yeah, that's the thing about queer on the internet, is that it used to be a very regional thing. The codes would be different in New York versus Los Angeles, and obviously they still are to some extent, but it used to be very I guess region specific, and this is referencing my research that I did for this article. Oh. Yeah, it used to be these codes, and also culture used to be very regional specific basically, and I feel it's just kind of globalizing, or normalizing across the country and to some extent the world, but I'm mostly thinking of America because that's where we are, and I don't know a lot about other places.
Yeah, no. I mean, the same process is happening with dialects too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And language too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Face that part.
Talk about normalizing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of getting back to the spooky theme. The day after Halloween, I got a call from my mom because she wanted to tell me that she went to West Hollywood with my dad for Halloween.
Okay.
And she was just talking about how fun it was, and it was entertaining because people had amazing costumes, gay people with very extravagant costumes. But I thought it was kind of funny that she also said that there were a lot of middle-aged straight couples there, like herself and my dad. And I think that's kind of interesting. That I'm glad that my parents are #woke,
True.
enough to do that.
Yeah.
But it's also West Hollywood in general is just gentrified in many different ways. But I don't know. It's the line between keeping queer culture and queer communities
Just for queer people.
Yeah, just for queer people for safety, but then when does it become gatekeeping, and when is gatekeeping okay? I don't know. It's just a lot to think about.
See, that actually is a really interesting example to me. Not the fact that it's your parents in particular. No offense, I'm not that invested in
That's
your
okay.
parents. But I feel that's a really interesting example of one imagines that originally WeHo Carnival was an intra-community performance. It's a participatory event. Everyone has a fun costume, and you're going there to be part of a community. And I feel when you introduce straight couples in whatever proportion, it almost acquires this voyeuristic isn't the right word, but it's you're going there to look at queer people performing something that isn't necessarily for you,
Mm-hmm.
and to look at it this spectacle. Yeah. Which, I mean, not to, I'm straddling the line between being this is problematic sort of consumptive gaze, and that is crazy, this is the real world and I need to touch grass, if that makes sense.
I feel to me it depends on the intent. What is your intent when you're going into this space? Is your intent just to have fun? Are you there with queer friends? Or are you there just to watch the queer people?
Gawk.
I don't know. I think a lot of people go into it with pure intent, and that's okay. I definitely don't think it's as bad as straight people at Pride just to see the concerts who aren't actual allies.
Come on, bro.
Yeah.
I think it's probably, this seems to be touching a lot on elements of like cultural appropriation versus appreciation, like in the way that it has to do with the way that the intent with which you engage with the event or the content, I guess, I don't know, and also like how you make other people feel when you're in, how you make the people who this space is for feel when you're there, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, to me it seems kind of like the slight nuance and the difference between the two definitions of performance and like performing queerness. Or like when you have straight people there as like an outside audience, it's more of, like you said, JQ, like a performance for an audience, whereas before it's like, you know, an intra-community performance, but also like more of the performing queerness. If like somebody wants to define that better, it's been a while since I took intro to LGBTQ studies.
True. I mean, like performative queer theory.
Yeah.
I love that one. It, like, that fucking, I took a gender and communication class, read about performative queer theory, and it, like, rewired my brain. It was crazy. Which,
okay,
like...
well, for those of us who don't
exactly.
take classes...
So, like, performative queer theory is basically the idea that, like... So, performative theory is basically the idea that, like, your identity is a performance. It's not something that you intrinsically are. It's something that you project out to the world and something that you perform, I guess. Kind of like being an actor on a stage, right? It's like it's either a psych or a philosophy theory. I don't know.
Sociology.
Okay. Yeah. And queer
psychophilosophy.
Whoa. We're making words. We're inventing. Fuck ASU, we're the #1 innovation. And like queer performative theory suggests that, oh god, what is it? I think like actively queering like these performances of gender is like kind of like a revolutionary act. Let me look it up in more detail, but that's pretty much
And I feel like in general performativity implies that we're all like actors doing our identities as a performance to like for other people and to get certain reactions and like fulfill certain social norms. Like, there's a famous quote by Irving Goffman that, like, life is a wedding. Yeah. Because in a wedding, like, everyone has a role and everyone is expected to perform a certain way. And that's kind of how real life is. Like, everyone has this, like, perceived gender and, like, perceived, like, social roles that they're expected to act out.
Yeah. Very true.
Yeah, I think that's important to define because people hear performance and they're like, performative, you know?
Right.
And that gets confusing.
I mean, well, even beyond that, just snooping on what Emma's Googling, there's a Judith Butler quote, question mark, that's like, gender exists because of the performance of gender. And although I find that really interesting, the thing that it immediately makes me think is that, like, and how is someone going to use this to invalidate me? By being like, oh, you're only the gender you are because you perform it that way.
Right.
And it's like, sure, maybe, but what if I really like performing it this way?
Right, exactly.
And performing it a different way would make me sad. Like, I feel like it's a really cool idea, but I feel like it's also kind of easy to weaponize as like, so just agree with biology, heart emoji, and you can perform masculinity if you want, I guess.
Well, I feel like one of the big like takeaways from that theory is though it's not necessarily bad to be performing something, but it's who is your audience. You should kind of cater it more toward your audience being yourself in that aspect. That would be the argument, like, I'm performing this for myself. I'm performing this because it makes me feel fulfilled.
Yeah, that's something that I've thought a lot about in my own gender performance. I'm not finding it. I'm literally searching queer in every single one of my notes from this class, and I can't fucking find it. Which I'm mad about because when I tell you that it radically changed the way that I think about gender and my gender specifically, I was like, whoa, it was wild. Anyways, like, I don't know, for me, it kind of ended with me being able to think more meaningfully about the way that my outward performance of gender impacts how, like, my internal sense, like trying to do, not better, because it's not, like, you know, the only part of my gender that exists, but, like, trying more to align my internal gender feelings with, like, what's happening on the outside, and, like, being able to, like, think about that and, like, look inward so that I can more accurately represent myself, I guess.
Yeah, no. I mean, that definitely makes sense. And I feel like, at least with my own experience, like, performing a gender, I feel like it was very much easier for me to go forward than, like, it is for me now to, like, go back. Because I still, like, am low-key expected to wear women's formal clothing to, like actually weddings and stuff are the premier example. And I feel like it's so much harder to wear a dress now that I'm, like, used to presenting myself this way, in a way where, like, even if I was kind of uncomfortable in a dress, I was, like, disconnected enough from what I wanted to be like that it didn't really reach me. Where now I'm like, I know what it feels like to feel good looking in the mirror, and I don't want to go back.
Yeah, very much so.
So I guess you could say when you first start presenting your gender in the way you want to, you may not feel like it inside, but then it feels like a costume. But then at the same time, once you're in that place where you feel content with your gender, going back feels like a costume.
Yeah,
it feels
oh my god.
Yeah.
No, I was at at that wedding I was at where I had to wear a dress, like, and this is, like, problematic for me to draw on, but it definitely felt like man in a dress. I was like, surely everyone can look at me and see that this is wrong.
Yeah.
And obviously that's, like, men can wear dresses and stuff, that's not right, but, like, it felt like such a clash with my performance of gender that it felt, like, visibly like I must be giving off waves that are, like, doing it wrong, TM.
It feels so weird for you that you think that other people must think, like, immediately be able to point out that it's wrong, because it's like the external performance of your gender is also, like, connected with your internal feelings about it. Yeah. Anyways, I found the definition of queer performative theory. It integrates both performative theory, which is the idea that humans generate their identities through expression and performance, and that the performance of the identity is what we call gender. It's not a thing, you know, so, like, a note that I have is that gender is not a thing that we have, but a thing that we do at certain times and situations. And queer theory, which is a critique of conventional categories of identity and culture that are deemed normal and abnormal, particularly in relation to sexuality. So queer, both in the meaning of LGBTQ+, and, like, weird. You know, like, the way that it was used, well, as a slur, but also, you know, just before that when it was kind of, like, neutral language. So queer performative theory integrates both of those, and it suggests that queer performances as a means are a means of challenging cultural categories and values. So it stresses that, like, routine queer performances are particularly important for, like, challenging these cultural norms, like just dressing like that on a day-to-day and not making, like, not even necessarily, like, pointing it out, just doing it and doing it regularly. Just people seeing that in and of itself can, like, you know, challenge things. Yeah.
So is that kind of like a, I don't know if chicken and the egg is the right way to say it, but, like, is it that your performance creates your internal gender, or that your internal gender dictates your performance?
I think it argues that there is no, I don't know. That's a good question. I think it kind of I think it goes back to gender being socially constructed. So it, in some ways, it kind of argues that identities don't exist and they never are completely, like, there's no such thing as, like, a completely internal identity, because it's so influenced by the culture that you grew up in and the things that you learned about what that identity is supposed to mean, that it kind of doesn't even really exist, and it's just, like, an amalgamation of all this stuff that you've learned about what it's supposed to look like externally, I guess. Which, like, again, that's one of those things that seems like it could be probably, like, invalidating, because, yeah, wait. I had somewhere I was going with that, but then it like flew out of my brain. I stared too hard at the water damage on the ceiling, and then everything left my brain. Yeah, anyways, so anyone else can speak on. You sounded like you were about to say something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like there can't be no sense of internal gender, because I feel like there's so much cultural pressure to just, like, present as the gender you were assigned at birth. And I feel like if just continuing to present as the gender you were assigned at birth could make you that gender, then A, the world would be a less interesting place, and B, probably this couch would look somewhat different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that I think that's what I was gonna say, is I don't think I fully agree with that. I think that like I don't know, I think that like subconscious like idea, like even if your idea of gender is influenced by like subconsciously by the culture that you grow up in, there's still like this like, especially for trans people, I feel like there's this very meaningful experience with your internal sense of gender and how it may sometimes clash with the external parts of it. So I don't know if I completely agree with that one, but you know. And I also might be vastly oversimplifying that theory, and performative theory in particular, because it's been a minute since I've studied it, so apologies if that's the case. If you're a sociology major and you're watching this and you're like, you fucking suck. My bad.
As a sociology major, I feel like that was a good summary.
Okay, good. Very cool.
I avoid things that have the word theory in the title generally.
Yeah, just on a principle.
It just never seems to come up that much in my classes.
Oh my god, I love this question. What was everyone for Halloween? We can save that for the end, or we can do that, but you know, I think that's a good question.
Ooh, I think we can talk about what makes Halloween camp, though. Because I feel like it really does. But I feel like Halloween is definitely a space where gender transgression is, if not encouraged, certainly significantly more permissible than on other nights of the year. I have something here that's like, Halloween costumes let people sort of cross-dress as a joke, like as a silly joke. Isn't it so funny that this man is wearing a skirt or whatever? But the fact that it's permissible as a joke on Halloween also means that there's like the aforementioned plausible deniability if this is like one of the only opportunities you have to dress like in a way that doesn't align with your assigned gender at birth, without being like hate crimed for it immediately, because you can go, no, haha, it's a joke.
It's a silly joke.
It's a silly joke.
Anyways, read the hauntology print if you want more of that fame.
It's like /J/SRS/J/SRS, you know?
There's so many layers of Reddit tone indicators. God. What were you gonna say?
I feel like I judge people who aren't camp on Halloween. Like this is your moment. This is your fucking time. If you're not like a drag performer or like in theater, what other time do you have to be this fucking extravagant? Like,
so true.
I really judge people who just put on like a pair of ears. I don't know. What are you doing?
Unless they're like elf ears, because those, fuck, TBH.
But like,
you can wear
for
you
sure.
can wear elf ears all the time.
No, yeah,
that's true.
Okay, true. You could get body mods so that you have elf ears all the time.
Okay, I meant just like
the
you can do that too if you want. Your body, your elf ears.
Your elf ears. They're yours.
Yeah, and I feel like as we get older, or at least I noticed when I entered college, that there's a push in Halloween to like make it less camp, because like being more camp is like uncool.
Right.
So I have like friends that'll go out in cat ears and a t-shirt. And I'm like, that really sucks.
Can I get on my high horse really quick?
Yes, please.
Sure,
Okay,
absolutely.
great.
Step up there.
Yep.
Max.
No, I just feel like there's like, I feel like cringe culture has killed earnestness, and it makes me so upset.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like,
That's so real.
earnestness is so important to me in particular, and presumably also other people, but I notice my own experiences a lot.
As people often do, yes.
As one often does. And I feel like it just makes me so sad to, like, worry that really earnestly caring about something is just, like, opening me up to, like...
Attack.
Yeah.
But it
Like-
is a vulnerable position to be in. So earnest people are very brave.
Yeah, but also I don't think it should require bravery to, like stuff unironically.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think putting lots of effort into your Halloween costume should be, like, something to make fun of people for because they care a lot about something that is objectively kind of superfluous or silly. Like, I think it's very important to care about things that are superfluous or silly. Like, Falling Angel meets Rising Ape, you know? Like,
I mean, I feel like, I don't know what kind of, like, events and parties you went to this year, but I feel like at most of the ones I went to, it was more of a, oh, it's really cool that you put in this much effort. Like, people were generally complimenting it, but then, like, they wouldn't do it themselves, but they were generally not, like, super judgy of people who did put in a lot of effort. I feel like even at, like, frats or, like, more traditionally straight spaces, people were okay.
yeah. No, I feel like it's
Very
when...
cool.
I feel like it's when you hit the terrible area where you tried really hard, but you're not very good.
Oh, that is not a fun area to be in, huh?
If you're, like, immensely skilled or, like, very good at your costume, then people are going to respect it. But if you just sort of tried hard and it's obvious that you tried hard, but not that it's, like, not that you're, like, a professional,
Like,
I feel like you just get fucked.
like the people who go as their D&D characters. I
Yeah.
feel like that... I feel so bad because there's so much effort and, like, no one's gonna know
Yeah,
what that is.
so real.
You just look like a elf cowboy or something.
But I love
Oh,
you,
yeah.
D&D. D&D is, like, the number one gender exploration platform.
Oh my god.
It's like, okay,
let me fucking tell you.
like, hierarchy, using different pronouns online just to try them out. D&D character that definitely isn't you.
Halloween costume.
No, I've heard this from so many, like, queer and trans people that they, like played queer and trans characters long before they came out.
I fucking love that.
And, like, the closet was fucking glass, and, like,
I know to everyone else, but then they were just like, oh, it's just my character. That's just how my character would act.
No, I know. In one group I'm in, this guy played a non-binary character for, like, so many years that, like, I think one of us, like, reached out and was like, hey, because I think they were also trans. They reached out and were like, hey, like, do you have anything to tell us? we know this person for, like, they'd known the person for years. And he was like, no, I did some soul searching, but I decided I'm still a cis man. And I was like, okay. But I feel like that calls into question, like, there's that, I think I wrote something about it, about, like, do it, like, an artifice gender, like, performing a gender, like, once or twice just for fun, but then it starts to kind of become an identity when you do it repeatedly, that kind of idea. That's the Judith Butler mentions this, that like identity comes from repetitive action. So, like, the more you perform an identity, the more it becomes, like, your identity versus just, like, trying it on, which I think is interesting. And I think sometimes D&D can be that, and sometimes it can be, like, your repressed identities coming forward in the form of a fictional character.
Yeah.
D&D is fun. I'm gonna second that one.
I feel
For
like,
gender.
and I would say just role-playing games, but I feel like video games have kind of poisoned that term. Because until now I have to specify tabletop role-playing games, because those are the ones where you're, like, actually role-playing. Not to be a hater. I'm a hater about many things. As you have noticed.
If there's any place to be a hater, it is a podcast.
Yeah, so real.
I'm curious your opinions of, like, the roleplay community online, like, on Discord and, like, a little bit on Wattpad and, like...
Occasionally rancid, but overall I support them.
Okay.
I mean, that's, like, many things, though.
Yeah. I feel like everything's occasionally rancid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely have friends who are in the roleplay community, and, like, they're cool. I'm friends with them.
True.
It's the kind of thing where, like, I feel like the barrier to entry, like,
Yes.
if I wanted to, I wouldn't know where to start.
There's a barrier to entry. I've been in that community since I was, like, 12. we're nice-ish to newcomers, but if they're really bad, I'll be honest, if someone's really bad and they're new, I won't do stuff with them.
I mean, yeah, but presumably if someone were really bad and they were not new, you also wouldn't do stuff with them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like, and that's
fair,
another
so don't
thing.
be bad.
Where there's a lot, that's another thing where there's a lot of queer people, there's also a lot of exclusivity, like, there's a lot of exclusive groups, like, where you have to, like, know someone, or you have to do, like, an application.
Okay, application is wild.
No, I used to run one of those, and I would reject people.
I guess it makes more sense, because I feel like roleplay is more, like, skills-based than, like, a fanish community, because a fanish community, like, being really enthusiastic is also a meaningful contribution to the community, because it, like, it makes other people feel good, and, like, helps them keep creating stuff, but I can definitely see where, like, roleplay, you're expected to create in a participatory environment.
Yeah, and yeah, you're supposed to create well, and kind of, because there's no rules. I feel like that's what makes it really appealing for a lot of queer people, because then you can just, like, do whatever you want. You can make a character that performs in any way.
What was your best Halloween costume?
Actually, Rey from Star Wars. I kind of slayed. I'm not gonna lie. I
dressed-
still have a picture of it.
I dressed as the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, hell yeah.
I had, like, a torch that was a flashlight with, like, tissue paper on it to make it look like it was a fire. And then I had, like, a craft foam headdress. It was great.
Do you have a picture?
No.
Boo.
This year I was Mojo Dojo Casa Ken, but
that was
I'd say
that was a good one.
one of my best costumes, this wasn't for Halloween, it was for summer camp though, was a piñata.
And everyone beat you with sticks?
I did let people beat me with sticks, and I threw candy at them.
That's really good.
I got,
That's a
like,
good
this
interaction.
box and, like, painted it rainbow with a bunch of tissue paper and things. And then I was a piñata. It was great. I was Ziggy Stardust once. That was kind of mid. The idea was great.
The
execution was mid.
Well, we can't all be David Bowie, though.
I know.
Like, you aimed really high, and that's what matters.
Oh, okay, true. How about you?
Last year I was Poison Ivy, but the version from the gay cartoon.
Oh, true!
That's really fun. I painted myself green.
I was Harley Quinn last year.
Way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm still never seeing anyone, so I just went alone without a Harley Quinn, but I was like, oh, if I had a girlfriend, that'd be so nice. Anyway.
One of my roommates also went as Poison Ivy, I think, either last year or 2 years ago, and she slayed. It was good. She, like, dyed her hair red, and she had, like, leaves and stuff, and I was like, fuck yeah, Niti.
No, my roommate didn't have, like, a good couple's costume. Straight, unfortunately, but still, I think, honorary mention. He was Linguini from Ratatouille, and she was Remy from Ratatouille.
That's so good!
Really good.
That is pretty funny.
And then, other than that, I had a friend who was Minecraft Steve, and that was awesome.
Let's go.
Yeah. He would walk around campus in it, because he wore it to, like, a club meeting.
Nice.
And, like, people would be like, yo, Steve!
Minecraft Steve!
He took selfies with, like, 3 different people as Minecraft Steve. Incredible.
I might have seen that guy. Because I saw somebody dressed as Minecraft Steve.
Was it wearing, like, gold armor?
I think it was.
Totally
That's so
saw it.
funny. No way.
That's really
So if you saw Minecraft Steve wearing gold armor at Halloween, that was my friend.
That's great.
My friend Minecraft Steve.
Yeah. Best friend.
Best friend.
I would like to address Emily's note that says, I want to dress like a 1950s math professor, but will I? I would love to know what a 1950s math professor style is.
No,
because that
you
sounds
know.
fucking great.
Okay,
All
Emily
I'm
will
thinking of
describe
is
it.
Oppenheimer, bro.
Is
What?
Is it like short sleeve shirts with ties? Like,
No,
what is
like
that?
tweed, surely.
Yeah. Okay, well...
That's like present day math professor.
Yeah,
Okay,
not
yeah.
present day, for sure.
Wait.
Well, present day math professor is like...
Are you
My professor wears a wrinkled t-shirt.
Are you pro bow tie or anti bow tie?
I'm anti bow tie. For
Wow.
myself. Like, bow
Oh
tie
my
is
God.
fine for other people.
Sorry.
I bet you could rock a bow
I just remembered that I dressed as Doctor Who one year,
Which
and
one?
I completely forgot about
Wait,
the
which
Matt
one?
Smith one.
Okay.
Oh no, with the bow tie.
Not
Sorry.
my favorite doctor.
That just awakened something deep in my brain.
I
I
love you,
forgot that I
sister.
did that. I'm so sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, like, I feel like it's kind of problematic inspiration, but I watched The Imitation Game recently. The other inspiration was in fact Oppenheimer, which definitely did include some war crimes.
Okay,
So-
that's like the
Oppenheimer
war crime.
is like war crime. War
the
crime
crime-
central.
Yeah, of all war crimes. Yeah. No, but
Yeah.
Fun
he was-
fact, we didn't need to do that.
no way.
It's just like it's not really the broader context. It's not the war crimes that interests me. It's the
Well, I'm
it's the-
glad to hear it.
It's the specific era fashion in
Yeah.
front of a chalkboard. Like that's
yeah.
what I like.
You're kind of based for that
No,
one.
50s fashion is really... It's really interesting as a reaction against, and I'm mostly familiar with women's fashion, against, like, wartime conformism and fabric rationing. Certainly, like, the new look is like, oh my god, such a vibe. Dude, I love 50s women's fashion. It's
I'm bringing
like
it
the...
Can I just say, Oppenheimer's gay little hat? Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Are you gonna get a gay little hat?
1950s.
Are you gonna get a gay little hat?
Maybe I was thinking more of the like vesty, like sweater vest.
Oh,
Dude.
And
yeah.
a tie.
Oh
No, okay.
my god.
that.
I went
Mine,
to
like-
a thrift store and they had so much formal wear. They had those little formal wear vests. Like when you wear a 3-piece suit, they like you have like a vest on your
Yeah.
foot, like
No,
a
no.
little like a gangster from like
you're going
the
to see my
50s.
waistcoat at the costume party.
Oh my god,
You have a
stop! I'll
waistcoat?
die.
Yeah, dude, of course.
This is
Have you
great.
met me?
Oh my god, I'm going. I need some people to dress
so
up as
fucking
Calico
good.
Jack and Mary Reed with me because I'm going as the pirate Anne Bonny. So I need some other.
I might do Gideon the Ninth. So that's not
Oh,
related
that's
at all
great.
to
No,
anything.
no, but Gideon the Ninth is gay, and that would be a
Is
costume.
gay. Okay, I do see what you mean with 1950s women's
No,
fashion.
they
Like the whole
slayed.
like petticoat thing,
Dude, I
like
lo-
poodle skirts, very
Yeah.
cute.
I love the
it.
new look.
Yeah.
Number one new look enjoyer.
Number one new look. This is a new look.
It was called the new look.
Oh,
it was
I
new at
not
the
aware of
time.
that. Okay, true. Gotcha. That's great.
I-
Sometimes I forget we're on a podcast. Sorry, what were you saying? Oh,
I love all the fashion in Mrs. Maisel, like all the 1950s fashion.
yeah, super cute.
And yeah, it kind of showcases 1950s butch fashion with like Susie and some of the other more gender
See,
non-conforming
wait, this is related
characters.
because
But,
I
yeah.
have in my notes that I think queer people are overrepresented in the historical fashion community. So
Like,
we tied it
yeah.
back in.
As in,
Yeah.
fashion historians.
No, like
Or-
dressing consciously in the way that people in the past dressed.
Oh, I see.
There's this guy I follow on several social media platforms whose name is Vince Adams, who is a trans 18th century men's fashion historian, but also he just
Whoa.
sort of wears it in his day-to-day life, and I'm like, you're the coolest fucking person in the world. Like, I don't want to be you when I grow up, because I feel like I would not like to dress like that, but oh my god!
I can't find him. I'm just kidding. This guy with his
Oh,
fish.
well.
Oh god. But no, I feel like in a way dressing like the people of the past is a way for queer people to
Actually,
reclaim
Just that's
history.
A good YouTube channel.
and especially like
Yeah.
reclaim periods that wouldn't have treated them well
Right.
and that they can't look back on as fondly as people who would have like done okay in those time periods.
Yeah, that's true. Oh
I
shit!
think
Yeah.
I think on like Tumblr he's Vince Adams.
Yeah, he's
He's so
very
cool.
much so. Look at
Like
that.
what the fuck?
This
That's
is
wild.
great. I love a good pair of breeches.
Yeah, that part. That's funny.
That makes me want some now. Huh.
Breeches?
Yeah, I don't
True.
know.
Based.
Like the satin ones from our Flapping's death.
You too can be overthrown by the Sanculot
Yeah. But in style.
in style.
Fancy.
Did anyone
One more thing about fashion and being out, like what you said about people dressing
Gay.
gay, but historical gay. Like, I feel like that just kind of speaks to, like, if you're already outside of the norm of fashion, like, well, if I feel like being queer may, for some people, provide, like, some unique experiences because you're already outside of the norm and the mainstream just because, like, your gender's a little wonky or, like, you don't, like, you aren't as rigidly in this box of, like, you are girl, so you have to look like girl. Or, vice versa. And so that kind of, like, provides, like, a unique opportunity to have, like, greater creativity and, like, expression and, like, stuff like that. And I feel like something, you know, something that was mentioned, like avant-garde. Yeah, avant-garde fashion. Like, you know, being able to, like, take that into, like, a literal creative setting. I feel like you might have an advantage, question mark? I don't know. Kind of based.
Kind of based.
Where people are creative and they know what's happening.
Gender a little wonky should be an option on like all those forms.
Should be.
I would check that every single fucking time.
Yeah.
That part.
And with that, I have been JQ.
I've been Emma.
I've been Ava.
I've been Emily.
And remember, cringe culture is dead. So dead. I killed it.
Jake, you killed it.
Bye!
Bye.